Hello guys. So finally we are going to start our Spring Boot 0 to Infinity course. What we are going to learn in this course? So in this course we are going to master the backend development with the Spring Boot. As I have already told you what is going to be the roadmap for our Spring Boot backend application. I have already told you about the roadmap in our roadmap video. So what we are going to study in today's video. So in today's video we are going to learn about the Spring Boot core. So now you will be wondering like why this is the Spring Boot course and why we are going to start with the Spring core. So because there is some concept which gets repeated in the Spring Boot and it is the core part, it is the part of the Spring core. So if you want to really master your Spring Boot application, first you need to master some of the concept of the Spring core, not all the concept, some of the concept that gets repeated in the Spring Boot. So if you master this concept, then it will be easy for you to understand the Spring core. So in today's video we are going to learn about first what is the framework and what is the Spring ecosystem before learning about the Spring core. So you can see that what we are going to learn in today's video. So we are going to start with the level 1 Spring core. Framework, why there is need of framework, what is the Spring ecosystem, and the real world uses. In the next video we will learn about the Spring context and how to create the beans and the bean scopes and the life cycles, and after that we will learn about the dependency injection and then the Spring context. So what we are going to learn in today's video we are going to learn about what is framework. First we will start with very basics, like Spring is the framework. So first we will need to understand what is a framework and first of all why we need it. Next we will learn about in any software application there are two types of logic. What is the difference between business logic and non-business logic codes. Then we will learn about what is the Spring framework and what is its ecosystem, and then finally we will learn about the inversion of control. The major framework work on this principle, inversion of control. So in today's video we are going to master all these four concepts in very detail. We will start from the software. First we will try to understand what is software development. So first we will understand what is software. So software is nothing but it is a collection of programs that solve a real world problem. So what is software? Software is nothing but a collection of programs that solve a real world problems. Now every software has two types of requirement. First one is the business requirement and second one is the non-business requirement. For example, you can see that. So if every software has two types of requirement. First one is the functional requirement and second one is the non-functional requirement. It is also known as non-business requirements. And first one is the functional requirement. It is also known as the business requirement. Now, business requirement means what the system should perform. For example, consider the example of food delivering system. So what is it? So every application has two types of requirement. First one is the business requirement and other one is the non-business requirement. So first consider the example of the food delivering service, food delivering app like Zomato or Swiggy. So what is business requirement? So its business requirement are like this: what the business wants. So the business wants that the customer can place the order online, order must be paid before shipping, or business wants order status, like order status tracking, like if the order has placed, paid, shipped or delivered. So order tracking, admin user can view and manage all orders. System must support discount and taxes, report for daily and monthly sales. So these all are the example of the business requirement, what the business wants, and it is also known as functional requirement or business requirement. So next, what is the non-business requirement? So non-business requirement means how the system is built. So like this application should have the database to store the data. The security should be implemented with the help of authentication and authorization. There should be a method of logging and error handling, input validation. There should be a method of transaction management, exception and handling, retry logic for the failed operation, and the performance improvement. So basically every software has two types of requirement. First one is the functional requirement and second one is the non-functional requirement. Functional requirement is also known as business requirement and non-functional requirement is also known as non-business requirement. So non-business requirement mean how the system is built and what the system wants and how these requirements are implemented. So there is some kind of observation, like every application has same non-business logic requirement. You can see that every application need the same non-business logic requirement. Every application need the same non-business logic requirement. Like all the applications must have the security, principle in order to implement the security. Like every application has same non-business logic requirement, like logging in order to log some warnings or some information. Second one is the security, every application must be secure. Second one is the communication, every application need to communicate with each other. And third is the performance optimization, in order to optimize the performance of the application. So every application has a same non-business logic requirement. So even if your application is order management, the non-business requirement going to be the same. If the app software is the customer management software, its non-business requirement is going to be the same. Even if the app or software is ticket management, then again the non-business logic requirement would be same. All this, like logging, security, communication, and performance optimization, all the non-business requirement of any software is the same. Only the business requirement is same. For example, for the order management, its business requirement is that the user can place the order and should be able to track the order. For the customer management, the admin should add the customer and view all its status and what is its track its status. For the tracking, ticket management, its business requirement is that the user should be able to book the tickets. So even if the app is of different kinds and handle the different business operations, its non-business logic requirement is same. So what we can observe, that the business in any applications, only the business logic differs. We can say that in any application, only the business logic differs, but the non-business logic like security, logging, communication, and performance optimization remains the same. Basically every software has the same non-business logic requirement, and if the developer want to implement the non-business logic requirement from himself, then he or she has to write a lots of code. So what is the problem in this? So first you can observe that the non-business logic code is much greater than the business requirement code. You can see that you can imagine it as a tip of the iceberg. So this part is the business logic code. This is only the business logic code, and the non-business logic code is much larger and greater than the business logic codes. So what is the problem? So first off, even suppose first a developer is making like order management, then he has to write the same non-business logic requirement. If he or she is making the ticket management, he or she has to write the same non-business logic code. So non-business logic code gets repeated everywhere. So due to the repetition of the code, it is going to be very hard to maintain it, and it leads to, if the code is copied across the multiple application, then it is going to be the inconsistent behavior across the app, and there will be going to be the more bugs. And since all the non-business logic requirement has to written from the scratch, then it leads to the slower development process. So what is the problem in it? Since the non-business logic requirement is same, still the developer needs to write it again and again. So do you think any solution for this? What if we bundle all this non-logic code into some kind of function that the developer can directly call? For example, in order to implement the security, what happens if someone write the code of the security in somewhere? So if anyone wants to implement the security, directly call this function. So like, okay, Spring is a framework, but first, what is the framework? The framework is nothing. Framework just bundle all this non-business logic code and provide it to us so that we can focus only on writing the business logic. As you can see here, the business logic code is much smaller than the non-business logic code. So what does the framework does? It bundle all this non-business requirement code into a ready-made solution that the developer can directly use it, and the developer need to focus only on this business logic code. So his effort going to be drastically reduced. So what is the framework? Framework is basically a set of reusable software component that provides a foundational structure for building the application. So what is framework? So framework is nothing. Framework is a set of reusable software components that provide a foundation structure for building applications. What are these key points? So you can say that with the help of framework, it is going to handle the large heavy bottom part by itself. This will be handled by the framework, so that it will be handled by the framework, and so the developer need to focus only on this business logic requirement. So what does the framework does? Framework copy frameworks bundle all this feature into ready-made solutions, so that if anyone want to use this feature, they can directly use it without need to write it from the scratch. So what is the advantage of using the framework? As you can already guess, what are the advantages? So first, it saves the time and the money, since the developer don't need to implement the non-business logic code from the scratch. So it saves a lot of time and the resources in the development process. Second, due to the use of the framework, there is lesser bugs and more stability, since these framework are used in many applications and it is tested thoroughly. So there is a less chance of any bug or any vulnerability in it as compared to if any developer implement any feature from themselves. And second, there is a strong community support due to since the framework is same, so there is a lot of documentation, and if this developer faces any kind of problem, they can directly reach out to the community or the documenters in order for any help. Fourth advantage of using the framework is that it provides a standard code structure. So if some organization, consider one organization is using the framework, so if any new developer join it and he has already worked on this framework, so he or she can easily understand the code structure of this code base of this company, since the framework has a standard code structure, so anyone can easily understand this code. So these are some advantages of using the framework. What are the advantages? First, it saves the time and money. Second, fewer bugs and more stability, a strong community support, and standard code structure. Now, what are some of the examples of the frameworks that so first one is the Spring framework that we are going to learn in this course. So Spring, the first one is the Spring Express.js. It is JavaScript based backend framework. Third one is the Django. Fourth one is the Ruby on Rails. So these are some of the examples of the framework that bundle all the non-business logic requirement into a reusable software piece, so that any developer can directly use it, and it saves time and money. Next, so till now we have understand that what is framework, what there is a need of framework, what is the advantages of using the framework. Now we will, since in this course we are going to learn about the Spring framework, so first we will try to understand what is the Spring framework. So Spring is an application framework, so that is a part of Java ecosystem. So Spring is an application framework that is a part of Java ecosystem. What is mean by the application? Since it is used to develop an application, therefore it is an application framework. Now, what are some of the advantages of the Spring framework? What are the advantages? First, the Spring framework is highly scalable. It can be scaled very easily. Second one is the Spring framework is highly secure. Sorry, spelling mistakes. It is highly secure. And the Spring, due to its highly scalable and highly secure nature, it is enterprise ready. And fourth one is the highly robust. So Spring framework has some of the advantages, like it is highly scalable, highly secure, enterprise ready, and robust solution. Due to all these advantages, the Spring framework are used entirely. Due to all of these advantages, the Spring framework are used by the major companies, and all of the major banks use the Spring framework for implementing their websites or backend. For example, some of the Due to all these advantages, it is used by the major companies and the banks. For example, Amazon uses the Spring framework for its backend service. All the major bank that you can think use the Spring framework due to its highly scalable and secure features. Goldman Sachs is also used the Spring framework. Uber, Google, and many more companies use the Spring framework as their backend framework. So now we understand that okay, Spring is an application framework that is used by the major company, and it is highly scalable, highly secure, enterprise ready, and highly robust, and it is highly modular. Now, so when we say that Spring framework, it is not just one framework, it is an ecosystem of frameworks. Since Spring is a highly modular, it follows a highly modular approach. Therefore, the Spring framework is a collection or ecosystem of frameworks. For example, Spring framework contains all this a collection of framework. For example, Spring Core, it provides the foundation structure for developing any application. Second one is Spring Model View MVC framework. Spring MVC, it is used to implement the web REST APIs and the web applications. Third one is the Spring Data for implementing the database or persistent layer of the application. Fourth one is the Spring Security for implementing the security of the application. And fifth one is the Spring Testing. So when we say the Spring framework, it is not exactly one framework, it is a collection of frameworks providing different functionalities. For example, Spring Core, as I have already discussed as I have already described all this. So we can basically imagine the Spring framework as the solar system, like this. We can imagine the Spring framework as the solar system with here Spring Core is the sun, star. Why? Because Spring framework hold all this framework together. It provides the foundation for all these frameworks. So now you understand all this. Now let's see about what is the Spring Core. So Spring Core is the heart of the Spring framework, and it holds all the frameworks together. It provides several functionality like object creation, dependency management. If you're not understanding all this, don't worry, you will easily understand this when I will explain you all this. It also controls the application lifecycle control. So we can say that the Spring Core is the heart of the Spring framework. Now, Spring framework works on the principle of inversion of control. Now you will be thinking like, what is it? What is the inversion of control? So Spring framework works on the principle of inversion of control. So now let's see what is the meaning of inversion. Inversion means reversing something. And what is the control here? Control means creating an object or calling a method. So inversion of control means like we are reversing the process of creating an object or method calling. So first understand what happened without the inversion of control. So traditionally our code only create the object, call the method, and control the execution without the IoC. Without the inversion of control, our code only create the object, call the method, and control the flow of execution of our code. For example, when we write like student s1 is equals to new student, so in our code, our code only create the new object. As you can see, our code only create the object, and when we call like s1 dot study, we are only calling the methods. But traditionally this happens. Without inversion of control, our code only create the object, call the method, and control the execution of our program. So here I am explaining you with the help of example. So here basically we have one service. Consider service as nothing but it's a class in which there is one method of hello that return the hello world. So now we will be calling this service in our controller class So this is nothing but just one class, and then in this we have to use our instance of this hello service. So let's see here. We are creating the object with the help of our code. For example, in traditionally our code only create the object. So here you can see that here is our code, and our code is creating the object, and our code is only call the methods. You can see that our code is calling the method hello of the service, and we are basically creating a new instance, and our code is controlling the flow of execution of our program and creating the object. So this happened without the inversion of control. So what are the problem in this scenario, and why there is need of inversion of control, and what are the advantages of using the inversion of control? So first we will need to understand what is the problem in without the inversion of control. So first there is a tight coupling. What is meant by the coupling? Like the coupling means that two classes depend on each other heavily. For example, if we change one class, the code in the other class must be changed. For example, the controller and the service class dependent, tightly coupled means both are depend on each other. So there is a tight coupling between the hello controller and hello service class. If we change some method, like if we change the method of this hello service, then we need to change this hello controller code also. So it means of tight coupling, and it is hard to test and difficult to scale the application without the inversion of control using without the inversion of control, because we need to create the object, call the method, and control the flow of execution of our code. So now let's say we have understand that what is traditionally, and let's say what is the inversion of control. So inversion means the reversing, and control means of creation of object or calling a method. So with IoC, inversion of control is shortly known as IoC. We give the control of execution of our code to some other piece of software. So inversion of control means that with the inversion of control, we are giving this control of what? Control of creation of object or calling the method to other piece of software. Here our Spring framework. Here we give all this functionality to our Spring framework. Our framework is Spring framework. So this software is framework. So inversion. So what does mean by the inversion of control? So we are giving the control of execution of our code to some other piece of software known as framework. So what is the inversion of control? Inversion of control means that the framework our code does not control the flow of execution. The framework control the flow of execution. It only create the object, life cycle of the object, and method execution. All will be handled by our framework, and our code does not handle all this with the help of itself. So what is the need of then what our code does? So our code only define what should happen, and the framework decide when and how it happens. So basically with the help of our code will define what should happen, and the framework will decide when and how. So have you understood it? What is inversion of control? With the help of inversion of control, we are giving the control of execution of our code to other piece of software known as the framework. So now framework control the flow of execution. Our code only define what should be done, and the framework will decide when and how. For example, here is our Spring framework. We will write our code, and we will give some configuration if we want to modify it, and now our Spring framework will decide what to call and when to create the object and call the method. With the inversion of control, our framework control our application. This is mean by the inversion of control. Have you understand? With the if you not understand it, you will understand it with the at the end of in the upcoming lecture. You will clearly understand what is mean by the inversion of control. But you keep only in mind that inversion of control means inversion means reversing, and control means the control means the control of object creation or calling the method. So basically we are giving this control to our framework. So now our code only define what the code should do, and when and how is decided by the our framework. So let's see it with the help of example. Currently I am just giving you example, and I am not expecting you to understand about this code. So here is example, same example. We have created one controller and we have one method. So basically we have one service, method service, that return hello from the service, and we have used this service here. See, we have not created its class, we have not created its object, or we haven't called this controller anywhere. We have just started it. If you are not understanding it, it's okay. I am just explaining you what is the inversion of control. So you can see that we have only created what should be done, like get method should do this and what should be done, and we are not defining how the object of this message controller will be created, or how this method will be called. Let's see, when we go to this URL, let's print the hello from the service, but we haven't called this method anywhere, or we haven't created any object instance. So all these things are controlled by the framework. So this means by the inversion of control. If you don't understand this code, it's okay, you will understand in the upcoming videos what does this code do. Basically it is a simple Spring Boot code. So now you have understand about what is the inversion of control. So inversion of control is nothing, it's just take the execution from this and give to the framework. This video, so let's do a quick recap what we have learned in this video. So in this video we have started with the software, like what is software. So we see that the software is nothing but is a collection of program that solve a real world problem. Now we have also seen that the software has two types of requirement. First one is the business requirement, like what the software should do. For example, if order booking app should book the order of the customer, and so it's tracking. And what is the non-business, and second one is the non-business requirement. And what is the non-business requirement, like how the system should be implemented, where the data should be stored, like security, database, authentication and authorization, performance optimization like caching. All this happen in the non-business requirement. And we also see that the business requirement changes from software to software, like ordering system has different business requirement, ticket booking app has different business requirement, movie event booking has different business requirement. But in all this, the non-business requirement stays the same, and the non-business requirement is much larger than the business requirement. So what is the framework? So framework is nothing but it just bundle all these non-business requirement into set of reusable components, so that the developer don't need to write it from themselves. So framework is basically a collection of software that bundle all these non-business requirement together. So what is the advantage of the framework? So framework help the developer like save time and money. It saves the time and money for the developer. Second one is it has a stronger community support, so if the developer faces any problem, he or she can directly refer to it. Third one is the fewer bugs and more stability, because these types of implementation are widely used by many types of organizations and have been thoroughly tested and patched if there is any bug or vulnerability. So, and these framework have a standard code structure, so it is easy to understand. And then we learn about the Spring. Spring is one type of framework. It is highly scalable, highly secure, more robust. Therefore it is used by the major companies and the most of the bank like Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Uber, Amazon used this framework, this Spring framework for their backend applications. Next, we'll learn about that when we tell about the Spring framework, it is not the Spring framework. Spring is basically a collection of framework with the Spring core at its center, and the Spring framework is highly modular and provides a different framework for the different functionalities, like Spring security for the security purpose, Spring data for implementing the database, Spring testing for testing the application. And finally, we learn about the Spring framework, and most of the framework work on the principle of inversion of control. What is the inversion of control principle? Inversion of control means that we take the control of execution from our code and give it to the framework. Now framework decide how to create the object and when to call the method, and what happened due to this? The dependency between the object decrease, and therefore it become highly scalable. So this is for the today's video. In the next video, we will learn about the beans and different methods to create beans, and what is the life cycle and context of the beans in the next video. Thank you. Signing off.